Hello and welcome to Legends Cast, a podcast about the cards, the meta, and the community of the Elder Scrolls Legends. My name is Mark Lutz. I'm outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm one of your hosts. And with me tonight, I have two fantastic, stupendous, incredible individuals. The first one, I have our regular co-host here with us, Dead Broke Nerd. Dead Broke Nerd, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. I am had a busy couple weeks. I had a crazy weekend traveling up and down Virginia, but now that I'm back settled down and caught up on some sleep, I'm feeling really good. I actually got a chance to play some cards today, so that was clutch. I needed that.
Well, it is good when we talk about a card game that we get to play the game.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes. Even amongst busy schedules, you got to get that time in the bathroom with at least one game towards finishing that quest, right?
100%.
Well, our other guest, she's our first time here with us. Our second female content creator for Tessel to be on the show. The incredible, miraculous, I think I used the word stupendous, most excellent Silverfuse is with us tonight. Silverfuse, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you. Thank you so much for being willing to come on the show. We really appreciate it anytime someone's willing to take a chunk of their day and just chat with us about Tessel for a couple of hours. And we love to sort of like kick off this show by talking a little bit just about like what we've been playing and what we've been doing in Tessel. Silver, you want to start us off? Just tell us, how's Tessel been treating you? What you've been doing this the last week or so.
Well, obviously I was doing invade things and seeing if it's still good, as well as kind of taking advantage of people playing not very optimized invade decks. So I've been playing a lot of aggro, a lot of Halalu, aggro warrior, Ebonheart, and that's been a lot of success just because of all the combo's a lot slower now. So it's been really nice just to kind of take advantage and smork.
Yeah. Well, I got smorked. I tried it too, and I got smorked quite a bit while I was playing it. We'll talk about that in a bit. It's far more complex now than it used to be. I think. Well, in my opinion, anyway.
Maybe.
I ended up with more. It seemed a lot harder. Well, it was definitely a lot harder to put together. But I was playing a really unoptimized version of it, of course. Ian, how about you, man? You said you got to get a little bit of time playing Tessels. What have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Yeah, I streamed this morning, and I've played like a couple games like over the last 2 weeks. It's been a little dicey, just personal life crap, just piling up and having to kind of take some time away from the stream and stuff like that. But I did get to stream today, which is cool. I haven't touched Combo Invade. Not once. And I also not once. I have not played a single game of it. And I haven't lost to anyone playing Invade yet.
Wow.
I had this string where all I was playing was aggro, so I guess I just smorked him down anytime I ran into it, and it just didn't happen. But I know it exists, and I've seen it get like really stupid. So I it was probably a good time for me to not be playing a whole lot of games. But today I played Doomcrag Warrior using Faded Wraith for Immense Cycle and Journey to Sovngarde. I actually won a bunch of games with it today, and never actually had to Journey to Sovngarde to win. But I had it. And then I also played, actually, I went on a ridiculous kind of run. I mean, I'm still at rank 5, but I went on like a 5-1 run at the end of the stream with self-damage Redoran, which is so fun to play. I mean, I got a video coming out on it tomorrow. It's I already kind of posted a video, but I decided incorporating more drain units, especially the Dagon Seducer, the 3/6 breakthrough drain. That thing's been really awesome with the Fighters Guild halls and stuff like that because it's got that big beefy back end, and then of course like it's a mid-range deck, albeit a fast one, so you kind of need that regen if you're starting to get smorked by other things. So I made those changes, and holy crap, it was a huge difference maker. It really was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine that deck would really benefit from staying alive, right? And
I mean, I think most decks do.
yeah, the vast majority of decks in Tessel do better when their health is above zero.
The first step to winning is not losing. So, you know.
Listen, I don't know. This episode is
Hey,
just full
there
of
is
rocks all
one deck that I can think of where you kind of want to die in some ways. You just Vivek with like Vivek, and then you play like Mechanical Heart and kill off your Vivek, and you have Namira's Ring up, and then boom, you've killed your opponent.
You know what? You're not wrong. You are certainly not wrong. I actually ran into like 2 Viveks today. I feel like I feel like if somebody has Vivek in their deck, they will see it against me. I ran into it so many times today. Luckily, Doomcrag doesn't really care about it, but
The only place I ever see Vivek is in Arena, which is just
that's terrible. That's the worst.
I still, yeah, that's a card that I think should be removed from Arena. I think it should have been a bit ago. They've removed my Relic Hunter, the 3/2 for 2 mana, but they left in Vivek. I don't understand.
Oh my gosh, there is nothing more frustrating in all of Arena than to just be crushing somebody and then throw Vivek in the other lane and you just never ever be able to touch it or do anything about it. The last guy who did it to me, I had him at like negative 140 health before he beat me. I just could never get anything in the shadow lane to take care of the Vivek. He just oh my gosh. And he played it the turn that he was at like 4 health, and I had a full field lane. He had nothing on the board. I was like, this game's in the back. I don't even want to talk about it.
It's
that's
pretty
what made
cheesy.
Yeah,
Vivek
that's what
can
made
me
be
stop Arena.
I don't like Vivek. Like I'm not advocating that it be removed from constructed or anything, but I don't like Vivek on the principle of, do you have the answer? If not, cry. You know.
It's not hard to have the answer in a lot of different cases.
Yeah, no,
but
it's
in
not.
Arena, it's very difficult.
Yeah. It can be one of those just super feels baddie cards where you're like, well, I don't have anything.
Silver, I don't. We're gonna learn about this, and I don't know. But did you ever play Magic the Gathering at all? Was that a?
No, I have not played Magic. I played a very, very tiny bit when I was in Dallas for QuakeCon. Very, very, very tiny. I know some basic things just because I see Twitter and I hear about things, and it's everywhere, so it's kind of hard to miss being in the CCG world. I thought about trying it before just to understand what people are talking about, but it seems really hard to get into. So that's, well, as far as as far as financially. And I'm someone who likes to win. I don't want to just get creamed by people who have a lot better cards than me. And it feels like Magic, especially Magic the Gathering Arena, like online, has been making it harder and harder for new players to get in. So that's really pushed me away from it. If it was easier to get into, I definitely would have tried it by now, but not with the way it is currently.
Yeah. I mean, those who think that Tessel is unapproachable, competitive Magic is one of the most unapproachable things. It was actually named the most complex board or card game in the world. Above and beyond anything else that's ever been created, Magic the Gathering stands as the most complex.
I take issue with that. Gotta be honest. I think
I do too, actually.
I know what you're referring to because I read that article, and it was that a computer had a harder time executing and predicting Magic than it did like even chess, right?
Because there's more random effects in Magic than chess. So of course the computer is going to find one easier than the other, but does that make it more complex? Not necessarily.
Yeah. Well, and I think like complex to a computer and complex to humans are totally different, you know? Because like, and this is where I take issue with Magic. Like, not that I don't have fun playing it, because I don't play it anymore, but I used to like play with my roommate in college, and we literally just would buy a starter deck and bust them open and like play with whatever we had, and it was fun. But you know, like it was just fun because it was hanging out with my roommate, not really because I was into Magic. But my issue, I mean, it feels so inelegant. You know what I mean? Especially compared to other games that have taken the good parts of Magic and evolved them and innovated. You know, Magic and Pokemon both, right? Feel like the resource system is so clunky, you know, and a lot of the effects feel Just really unrefined and inelegant is basically the best way I can say it. You know, it's
Well,
maybe
I
that's
don't know
part
if
of
that has
it.
anything to do with complexity, though.
Well, no, yeah, and what I'm saying, I agree though, like, because I'm thinking like maybe that, like the fact that okay, like you can mulligan. From what I understand, like you can mulligan and keep reducing your hand size, right? If
yes.
you mulligan again, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a huge layer. Like, okay, I drew 5 lands. All right, well, I'll mulligan. Now I drew 1 land. Well, I mulligan. So like all those little clunky mechanics due to like the resource system and which ones, it just seems like I can understand why a computer would have a hard time with it.
Well, all that to say that Magic the Gathering is an extremely unapproachable card game. And you're right. Magic the Gathering is the funnest at 2 points. The 1 point is $10 with your friend, and the next point is $10,000 at a tournament. Like there's not really a fun point between 10 and 10,000. I don't think that's one of the more difficult elements of it. Well, my week in Tessel, it's really looking back over 2 weeks. So Invade combo came out, and I was like, I'll try this. Because I wanted to talk about it on the podcast. And so I threw together, I don't know, whatever Ian's deck was at the time. And I made a few adjustments to it because unfinished business I despise. And so changed a few cards out and gave it a try. And I went from the bottom, the snake of rank 2 to legend. And I lost 2 games, legitimately lost 2 games. There was a couple of games that I lost because I horribly misplayed, but in any game that I didn't horribly misplay, I won basically by a landslide with the exception of 2 games, and that was against control decks that didn't break runes. Other than that, I just could not be outraced by anything. I couldn't be beaten by other invade decks. Like, it was insane. So I went straight to legend. And then this past week has honestly been really full, just, of course, like my life and all the things that I had going on. And I re-downloaded Elder Scrolls Blades, which might have been a mistake in my life. But I thought it was going to come out this fall for Switch. So I was like, I want to see what my fortress is like, and I want to get caught up because I was in like the, I don't know, early access or whatever. And I really like the game. So that's taken up some of my time. So it's been mostly sort of questing, playing some Gobos, played a lot of Empire Gobos and really enjoyed that. I just think that there's a lot of good synergies with some of the early game new goblins and some of like the token strategy just to sort of keep and maintain the board really, really well in the early game. And so Gobos in Empire, it's probably not the best, but it's been a lot of fun. And I like goblins, and I swore I was going to play them, so now I'm playing them. So yeah, that was basically my week. Last couple of weeks in Tessel, a lot of invade. I did screw around with a little bit of invade post nerf. Didn't really mess around with any of the cards that got buffed, but it's kind of sad that the nerf to invade made far more news, I think, than this whole slew of cards that got the buff. But well, that could be part of the news. Are you guys ready to move on and let's talk about some news?
Sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the news. Okay, so the biggest thing in news, which has been the biggest thing in news for quite some time, is invade combo decks. It was something that was sort of behind the scenes being experimented with by Endozoa and who else? Because there was another
Matty Borch.
And they're both part, I think, of the TRS competitive team, correct?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
It was kind of like inside of that TRS competitive team thing, and it was sort of like a close held secret until it came out at a recent warp meta, where I believe Endozoa used it to whip the crap out of everybody and win his second. Yeah, and win his second. Then we got a Guild Sworn version that came out that became pretty popular pretty quick. And we got an outcry from the community for a nerf. And one of those people who sort of helped push that forward was you, Silver. So tell us a little bit about like what your experience was with this whole invade thing. Like, what did you like? What did you dislike about this new combo deck that was found? Because you were pretty vocal amongst all of that.
Yeah, so I didn't actually help directly with the deck when Indazoa and Maddie were making it, but I watched them refine it and what they were doing. So I played it pretty early, and I just, as you kind of explained, just started smashing people on ladder with it, and it just wasn't even a contest. It was really, really disgusting, and the combo, it is a bit brain dead. Like, I have to say it. People are like, oh, most decks I can say like, oh, Nick Sox, you have to do this and this and know how to play in this situation. But this deck was literally like, hold your cards, bring back a gate, play an invade card, play the gate, and then just start going, just play everything. And then the only like skill to it was if you're against a control list, then you did wait and you wanted to make sure you had 10 invade cards in your hand essentially, or close to it. But that was about it. So I was like, yeah, this obviously isn't good for the game. I'm comboing on turn 5, 6, and 7. My opponent can't do anything about it. This is pushing out aggro. It probably even countered aggro like harder than control list, which is crazy. There's no way mid-range could ever compete with it. So it kind of just took away everything I love about Tussle, which is having these board-based battles and deciding whether to hit, when to not to hit, and making trades instead you're just waiting to combo off against someone. So I knew that this needed to be gone very quickly, and also too, Ian Bits and I talked about it. First off, Maddie and Indo made the Guildsworn version that Ian was showing off that I showed off as well, and Indazoa made the Mage version of it, but we just picked the Guildsworn version just because it just kind of seemed more fun to share, honestly. But we both talked to each other about it. We're like, hey, what should we do? Like, should we say something about this, or should we just kind of like see if it passes for a bit? And we were both like, yeah, we need to show people this, because when we have some reach to the point where we can elevate that level of people knowing what's going on. If it's something that just slowly spread, because obviously not everyone watches Warp Meta, but quite a few people do watch the YouTube videos between us too. So if it just slowly spreads, people are going to see it on ladder, and then they're going to complain, and then it's just going to like slowly bump up. But if we knew that if we showed it right away and it just kind of escalated, it would just be really, really high priority, and it would get changed faster. There are definitely some people that were mad at us for showing the list, like saying like, oh, you ruined ladder and stuff. Like, obviously we're still like a small slice of the actual player base, but enough where, a couple extra thousand people can make a difference when it spreads that quickly. So yeah, I was pretty vocal in saying this needs to be changed because it made the game really unfun for me. Honestly, I found out about the combo about a week before Warp Meta. So I was a bit down, honestly, playing Tesla, because I knew what was going to happen as soon as that combo was shown, that everyone would play it, because I don't blame them for playing it. It's a fun combo. Like, well, fun when you first start, because you're like, wow, I get to do this. And then after a bit, you realize that it just kind of ruins the game.
Yeah, I mean, the first couple times that I played it, I was like, man, this is actually, well, like, okay, so I played it once, and I was like, this is super broken. Like, it was just,
Yeah.
It wasn't even like, well, maybe this isn't really strong. Maybe this isn't as good as people are saying. It was like, I played it once, and I was like, oh, yeah, they can't have this can't be a thing. Like, this is way too good.
It was kind of funny, too, because at the beginning, like, I told Ian about the list, Ian Bits, and he honestly kind of disregarded me. He was like, yeah, that's hilarious. Like, there's no way that's better. Like, because I was like, it's better than Nick Sox Assassin. It's like the best deck we've ever had in this game. And he was like, you are overreacting. He was kind of like, what is wrong with you? Like, back off here. And I was like, all right, play the list, play the deck. And then, smashed Gauntlet with it. And he was like, okay. He was like, yeah, you were right. It's really good. He was like, this can't be in the game. So it was kind of funny to see. I had a few people, like, even when Indazoa was playing it, I have a few friends that were like, I still don't think it's that good. I think Indazoa is just high rolling the opponent. And then, like, after seeing it do it again and again and again, and then finally playing the list, people are like, wow, it was interesting to me, because a lot of people were very skeptical of it. I think because for like the 2 or 3 weeks before, people were like, oh, invade isn't very good. You can just execute it. You run it over with aggro. And as soon as like some people put together the gates, were like, this is good. This is good. People weren't really open to listening to that. But once they saw it after a bit, they were like, wow, this is broken. Of course, Reddit exploded into the dumpster fire. It was too.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Go ahead, Ian.
No, I mean, I'm totally get that. I mean, I remember the conversation we had in Discord, about
yes.
well, I mean, me and Silver and Laser and DT Blade are in this Discord group message, and I'm like, and I think Silver's like, oh my gosh, this invade thing, and I'm like, what invade thing? What is this? I don't even know what you're talking about, because every invade I play is tempo, this tempo invade, and it's like easy to beat. What's up, And then Silver's like, no, like it just combos from hand on turn 6, and I'm like, oh, that exists. That's terrible. Like, I was like, I was like, really? Like, I thought you were messing with me, not gonna lie. I thought you were just messing with me. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, and the thing is, I mean, I was one of those very outspoken saying invade is not good, right? Because for the first week and a half, 2 weeks, everybody just played at tempo, which is fun, and like, it can win games, right? But I mean, It's not combo. And I'm almost concerned now that like combo invade, even though it's back down, is a thing. I'm actually kind of concerned nobody's ever going to play tempo invade again, which I thought was actually kind of interesting. It forced people to build into shadow, and prioritize the shadow lane trading a lot more. I thought it was a very interesting way to kind of break the lane dynamics open a little bit with like tempo. But now I'm kind of like, oh man, like, will anyone ever play that again? Because combo, even with combo back down, you were talking about it, you guys put videos out, it's still playable. It's gonna take some work to make not playable, and so it's like with Battle Mage, right? Like when mid BM was ridiculously strong, it's like, well, great, everyone's gonna put mid BM into their competitive lineups, which boxes out the very interesting and pretty powerful like item aggro BMs and things like that, like. That's kind of my concern, anyways. I don't know what you think about that.
I do think it's interesting. I think it makes the mirror a bit more interesting now. Where before in Invade, it was like you either went second or you played Scamp. It was one of those two. But now, if you are playing like the BM combo version, for example, and I'm not even sure which one I feel is the best version right now. I think that Yellow Invade is the best, but I don't know if the importance of Fear Totem right now is a question. But if for example, I played the combo BM versus someone who is playing Tempo and Guildsworn, it could definitely out-tempo you. I mean, it is kind of a high roll, low roll versus each other. Yeah. But I think there's times where you play the tempo game, especially against aggro. Obviously, it's not near as good against aggro now, unless you get Fear Totem, then you're going to just combo on turn 6 like nothing. Like, same thing as usual, but if you don't have Fear Totem by turn, 4 or 5, you have to play it like a tempo deck, and you have to realize that as the invade player. So I feel like there is a bit more skill in it in some ways, but I think the RNG does go up as well. For example, Fear Totem, but something that is big where before on the combo, you were getting all the keywords anyway, so it really wasn't an RNG deck. People complain about keywords all the time. With the old combo, it was not an RNG deck, but now, because you're having to tempo a bit more, and it is a bit more RNG heavy. If you're getting a charge with Ward and Lethal, yeah, it's pretty good. Or the Drain with charge sometimes against aggro can make a difference. So it's a bit more RNG heavy. So there's the pros of, I feel like you have to understand what's going on now. You have to know if you need to be the aggressor, play tempo, or play for combo. And I think that's really nice. That adds a bit extra skill set. But there's also the con that it does now, like everyone's fear was, now I'm going to get high rolled by keywords. And that does happen a bit more now, which is a bit upsetting.
Yeah.
I think maybe my biggest area of concern with Invade was sort of almost not so much from a perspective of gameplay, but a perspective of the impact on the community. Because one of the things that I really, really appreciated about Invade was what it gave access to for the new players. Right? There's so many of the tempo invade decks that were going around at the beginning that were super, super accessible to somebody who was a newer player, because so many of the cards were commons and rares, and you could put together a half-decent tempo invade deck and go play it on ladder. Now, that is not true for the combos. The combo versions are typically very expensive. I mean, Invasion Party, Tremora Adept, you have some very expensive legendaries from the set that you have to craft, and so if the only quote-unquote viable invade deck becomes the combo deck, I think it's just another way where I think that Moons of Elsewhere did this pretty poorly with both Wax, Wane, and Consume, where although I loved both of those mechanics, they were relatively locked behind some pretty expensive walls when it came to legendary cards. Ones that a new player without a very large card base that had not been saving up gold in gems really couldn't break through. And if you want to come into this era and you want to play Invade, you at this point, if you want to play the combo, like you have a pretty big wall of legendaries now that you have to get past. That's pretty concerning for me because that was one of my favorite things about Invade was like, this is not going to be tier 1. This isn't going to be tier 2, but it's going to be viable. Like you could at rank 10 throw together an Invade deck by cracking open, 15 or 20, of the packs, and you could go play Invade on ladder, probably craft a couple of things that you need and play the tempo Invade. But now if it's like, oh no, you have to play combo Invade, it's just not going to be nearly as accessible to people. And that's concerning for me for a game where we have not got the announcement of a rotation yet. And so with every expansion, this game becomes more and more inaccessible to new players. And that's a bit concerning to me. I really wanted to see them do a rotation before they released Oblivion because it was one of their last mainline RPG games to draw people from the mainline RPG into the card game. I think it would have been nice to have a slightly better, new player environment by having a card rotation before we saw Oblivion come out. I could be wrong about that, but that's definitely my concern with the combo deck. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that it needed nerfed. Like, it was insane. It was insane.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get a lot of people arguing that it didn't need to be nerfed. I think it's a pretty mostly unanimous decision. And I think anybody who says, on YouTube,
but yeah,
I think anybody who says otherwise has very little concern for the integrity of the game. Because like,
well, either that or not a ton of experience.
I think
right?
A lot of people just didn't understand how strong it was. I had a lot of people in YouTube comments that just didn't get it. They were like, this thing can't OTK. I'm like, what do you mean? I can make 2 Iron Astronauts on turn 6.
Well, especially in a video especially in a video in which you just did it, Yeah,
it's just like I think that's something interesting to say, though, too, where people were very concerned about marketing for Jaws of Oblivion. I don't have any additional insight on this, but I personally, if I was in Bethesda's position, Skyrim is your biggest name. There's nothing that keeps you from doing like a second Skyrim expansion. There's nothing at all. It's their IP. They can do whatever they want with it. So if I was in Bethesda's position, I feel like they're going to this is just a guess. Like I said, I don't have any extra knowledge on it. I think you rotate out Dark Brotherhood and Skyrim, and then you have a Skyrim 2 instead of, Heroes or whatever. You do some other Skyrim thing, and that's what you really push. You just say this is a Skyrim, not card game necessarily, but a big Skyrim expansion, and that you're making it more accessible or something like that. I've also thrown out the ideas to Bethesda before. I have no clue how it was received, that making cards buyable through gyms at some point, like Dark Brotherhood, if you're not going to do a rotation, make it where I can just buy Garnag. Like, don't make me pay, whatever 100 gold so I can get a bunch of meh cards and then a few great ones.
Yeah, out of that, you just need Garnag and Sank Pet,
Yeah, just let me get those and be on my way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be cool, especially, once again, another thing for newer players, that instead of having to save up 3,000 gold to go buy the 3 pieces of the story, you could get told, hey, there's these 3 important cards, just craft these 3 important cards from this story and purchase this other story because there's more important cards from it. I think that would be something that would be helpful and make the game a little bit more. I have never really been a proponent of thinking that this game was inaccessible to a new player, because I was a new player. I've been basically free to play, and I have basically a full collection with a lot of gold and gems saved up. But I played during a different era. I played during the drops era. I played. I've played quite a bit, and I've gotten, right after Skyrim, I was on the early stages of this, so I didn't have this, what seemed to be an insurmountable grouping of legendaries and cards to build up. And, I am worried about that new player base. I just hope that we see something that sort of changes that up a bit before they do another really big push to the community. Because I just want, I don't know how many more big financial pushes Tessel has in it, right? If it doesn't turn around a significant payoff and reward. And that's kind of my concern is we're going to see Elder Scrolls 6 come out. I would imagine that we're going to see an expansion to go along with that whenever it happens. I just hope that whenever that does happen, whether it's now or 2040, that we have a really healthy environment for new players when we do get the next really big push for people from outside of card games to get into this. I think people inside of card games know about this, but people outside.
So you were touching on your concern with Invade being a economy issue, right? And I want to get Silver's impression of this, and I want to refrain from being overly critical, because on the whole, I actually quite liked Jaws of Oblivion. I think I had more favorable impressions of it early than I did of Moons, although I think Moons grew on me pretty heavily over time. But of course, the combo Invade, I'm kind of holding that as a bit of an aberration. I liked a lot of the things that were in it, especially as it pertained to buffing less viable archetypes. Specifically, and from a selfish point of view, ones that I like. But
Self-damage warrior.
Self-damage warrior. I love my the Worldly Wander is my guy. Worldly Wander, I've been doing everything under the sun with that guy, and I just can't stop playing him. But yeah, no. So what I was referring to though is, and I want Silver's impression of this. My biggest concern with Invade is the design implications for the future. Because I gotta ask the question, like, and I've seen this posited other places, so I know it's not just me. There's got to be some concern with this random keyword thing, right? I get that these gates were evolving. They clearly had a great idea. Okay, we want these gates to grow and get bigger and do more things. And you've got the first 3 levels are so cool. Oh, +1 defense, and then you can discount, and then and then you just get to the point where, we're out of ideas, so keywords, that's the old fallback, right? It feels like keywords are the fallback when they can't think of something a little bit more nuanced to include instead. And that kind of concerns me, not necessarily even for Invade, but just the longevity of the game and the mechanics. And are we going to see even more of that? I mean, everyone seems to be a little fed up with keywords and the idea that this big, high hyped up thing, the payoff is keywords.
I would say on that I think the reason it was random keywords, I would guess, is because theme-wise that fits blue, and Invade is partially a blue mechanic. I mean, it's all kind of a group sharing with the Guild Sworn, but I feel like that's part of the reason. I don't necessarily think it's because they couldn't think of anything else. If I were to kind of try to go in the dev's shoes here, I think they wanted something that did appeal to a lot of people, at least to start. People like seeing them make these really big mini Dagothers. That is something people like. But after a bit, people realize, this actually isn't that fun anymore. This happens with pretty much any mechanic. And sometimes the mechanic dies. Sometimes it just kind of sticks around for a bit. I'm trying not to lose my train of thought here. But I feel like that because they knew that, I mean, this thing ramps up really quickly. I feel like they knew that it was going to be multiple keywords quickly and less RNG heavy than what the community thinks. I do, however, personally, as far as Reddit and at least competitive side goes, most people do not like the random keywords. So I think seeing that feedback probably has an impact on them. Obviously, I don't think it's seen that way from, what most of the community is below rank 5, or only plays casual. So I don't think they see it that way. I think they just say, oh, I got, rally, or, oh, I got lethal. It's not a huge deal to them in most cases. And I think we're kind of stuck in this bubble where we only see, one group of people's opinions on it, which I agree with those people's opinions, I'll say. But I think if you're looking at the health of the game overall, our opinion doesn't matter as much. I hate saying it that way. You want to focus on the fun aspect for people that even, that we don't really see. I don't think, though, that means that everything's going to be this big flashy thing, random keywords and things like that. I think this was kind of a one-time thing, I would assume. And I think they really were trying to push something more thematic that people could just, people really love being able to type in the box, invade or Khajiit or, insert thing here, Daedra. And just being able to make a deck that way, I think it is really good for new players, kind of like what you said. Most of the cards were commons and rares, and you can just kind of put invade, and you're going to build a deck. That is pretty sweet, honestly, from a new player deck building perspective. Obviously, it's not great for competitive scene because we want, well, of course, the combo actually was kind of cool to see people work on a combo again and make a new deck. We hadn't seen a new deck because, like, previous expansion, alpha equal, just put that mid BM, call it good. Like, it was literally just swap one for the other. So it was cool seeing people's deck building being used again. I really liked that aspect. So I guess I wouldn't say I'm too worried about it. I feel like this was kind of just trying to reach to a certain audience, and I personally am not part of that audience, but I don't think it's going to ruin the game for me or in the future. And I don't think random keywords is always going to be the go-to, but I can definitely see where you would like see that yellow flag where you'd be like, oh no, this is gonna be an issue in the future. And I also think that as far as the timing of these go, Moons of Elsewhere was right before the championship series, and that was very much it was really, honestly, it was a few good cards, and I think Wax and Wing was a great mechanic. I thought it was a lot of fun, but it felt very nice for the competitive community, I would say. So I would be a lot more annoyed if Invade was put out right before the championship. And I feel like they did that on purpose too. Like, I feel like this was definitely planned to be this way. So I feel like they have both people in mind. It's just being shown in different ways where, hey, we got the MOE, and I personally love that expansion, even though it wasn't super high impact. And then we had the Invade after our championship and stuff had gone. So I would think, like, hey, next year, I don't think they're going to be putting out a big Invade random keyword in, April, May, June, July when we have Master Series. Instead, they're going to probably put in something more, like I said, a bit competitive focused. And then after that, I feel like we'll get another fun mechanic. I could just see that cycle kind of happening, is my guess.
Yeah, Moons was definitely a little more subdued, I'd say, or understated when it comes to obviously with Alfiq being the aberration. But
I thought Moons was amazing.
I will say one thing that I think I totally like what you said, and I think my favorite thing about what you said was it's a yellow flag. It's not a red flag. We're not there yet, but I think a yellow flag is the best way. I think is where I'm at standing with it. But,
I mean, if next expansion after that was still these random keywords, I honestly don't know if CVH would be able to handle that.
We'll bump it up to DEFCON 1 there. But yeah, no, I will say one thing, though. I think there is something important. You were talking about the majority of the player base not being us, right? Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing to mention. But I would also kind of maybe like push back on the idea that like we're also the most like vocal and present, and a lot of the opinions of people are formed or at least influenced by ours. And I think we can see that when things like Reddit start spiraling after, someone with a little bit of influence kind of casts their vote, if you will, on whether something's good or bad or whatever. And I think it's important to both appeal to the masses, if you will, but also to keep the most vocal and public faces from imploding.
which is a hard thing to do, right? It's that question of like, how do you go really deep with your deep players, and how do you go really wide with your player base? And that's not an easy thing to do. And I think Invade had a really good goal of that with a one aberration that once it came into being that we had this combo deck that got discovered. And let's just say, like, they responded really well. Like, they responded really, really well. I mean, we were talking like within a couple of days, we got a response like, hey, we're not going to be able to change it. Well, it came out on the Invade deck came out on Sunday, became really popular, right? On Monday, didn't they release a statement then and say, hey, we recognize it, we have a patch coming out.
Oh, you're saying that they acknowledged it. Yeah,
they acknowledged it like within the day. And wasn't it then Wednesday of that week that they made the swap?
I think it was out for like a week. I know that. Okay. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong.
There was only one gauntlet with it, right? There was there was the gauntlet during Warp Meta, which it was during that, but the next gauntlet didn't have it.
Because I mean that patch was, I guess, was that a Wednesday.
Because we didn't even get a full patch
Yeah.
to
I
make
don't
the
know.
nerf.
You're right.
So
I guess it was a little less than a week.
Yeah,
Yep.
because the Surplus Gauntlet didn't have invade,
Mhm.
so yeah, it was less than a week. It was
Okay.
pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, they did an incredible turnaround on it, like from
Yeah.
Sunday to Wednesday, like or Sunday to Thursday, one or the other. Like they made like a little quick update. You logged in, and they're like, "Hey, just so you know, we've changed this about invade." Those changes were when you change the field for a gate, which means I don't think it means swapping fields like a shadow shift, but it means if you were
The
to
field
put
of
a
play.
gate in your graveyard or that gate
Yeah.
would come into your hand, it goes back to level 1. So you cannot copy a level 6 gate to get a level 6 gate in your hand.
Yeah.
The other thing is your gates now cost 3 instead of 0, which means it's way more expensive to combo unless you're using Fear Totem, which is a prophecy, return something to someone's hand and reduce its cost by 3, which has found a really good place. So Silver, you've now released a video kind of looking at, is invade combo still viable or isn't it viable? And I'm curious to know kind of like what your opinion is now that we've had the nerf. Is it oh my gosh, this deck, they didn't do enough? Is it they overdid it and this deck is dead? Or is it like, hey, this is actually kind of perfect?
Personally, I put it like it's still a tier 1, tier 2. It's still playable. I don't think it's not to the same power level. Not even close to the same power level. There's more of a chance for aggro to do something against it. But I feel like I kind of mentioned it earlier, it's more high rolly now. Obviously, drawing Fear Totem was one of the issues, but now there's a lot more times where you kind of do like this partial combo where you're getting some creatures up but not all of them, and you are relying on hitting the keywords in some cases where you're half comboing. So hitting the right keywords can be a lot more critical now, which means that's more variance and RNG that you've added to the deck, which I dislike that part. I personally I haven't fully made up my mind, but I don't really like changing the gate to 3 mana. It just, the fact too that Tinkering can now really high roll too is a little bit gross, that you can make a turn 5 creature on turn 2. I did that and I got this silly assassin beetle, 5 mana 2/2, play a prophecy from your hand, and I was a bit disappointed. I was hoping for that Silver Revenge for a great YouTube moment, but I think the change is okay, I guess is what I'll say. It's not my favorite. I don't care for the way that the combo plays out still. I don't think that kind of combo should still be one of the best decks in the game. I would probably put it there. I'd have to play a bit more, but I think it's still up there. I would prefer it to be like a tier 3, tier 4 deck, something that every once in a while cheeses out the win, but something that you can play consistently on ladder when it still can be a turn 6 combo sometimes because you got Scout and Fear Totem. I personally don't find that fun. And the keyword aspect too, what Ian's brought up a few times, I personally don't find that fun. Even if I'm playing the deck, I'm like, oh, cool, I got the charged lethal. Sorry, opponent, guess I'm luckier. But so I don't like that being one of the top, like one of the better decks in the game. I'm fine with it existing, but I want it to be more of the tier 3, tier 4, something that I wouldn't see in a tournament, but something I'd see on ladder occasionally.
How about you, Ian? You got thoughts on the changes that they made?
To be honest, I'm not super familiar. I mean, I know the changes, I know, but I haven't seen the videos yet. I actually started watching Silverfuse's video, and I was watching it in bed, and I ended up falling asleep. Sorry, it was not you. But
you had a really long day. Okay.
No. I mean, so I was up for 19 hours. I don't know why I thought I would watch a video right before bed. It was stupid, but I intend to go back and watch it because I was interested to see what the changes were. But the first change should have been what it was from the beginning, like leaving field of play, resetting to 0. That should have always been the case.
Oh yeah, the first time when I used Belly G against it, I was like, "What? This thing is still used the same. It actually has no effect, and I can't silence it. That feels a bit unfair."
I mean, it was to the point where I assumed that's what it would be, right? And when it wasn't, I was shocked. I was like, "This made it through testing? What? Why?" But the second one, I guess I'm not. Again, I didn't play it. I've kind of realized I'm a bit of a Tessel hipster. I'm just like, if it's popular, I just don't want to play it, which is bad. I should play more competitive stuff. But I did that all during the Master Series. I played all the competitive things so I know how they worked. And now I'm just still riding that wave of post-caster lethargy. But I don't know. I guess I'm not overall super qualified to judge the results because I haven't played it. But the first thing, man, how did that make it through testing? I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, as soon as we got the nerf, I tried it with Ring of Lordship because for some reason in my brain, when you played Ring of Lordship, it lowered the cost of cards in your hand of the same type by 2. So I was like, I will just play Scamp, get a gate, Ring of Lordship the gate for 1, and drop all of my gates to only cost 1 mana. That's not how Ring of Lordship works. And it was very frustrating when I realized that halfway through the game.
Yeah.
But actually, I realized that I also thought that Fear Totem lowered it by 2, not by 3. So as it turns out, I actually don't know what any of the cards in the game do. But somehow I made it to Legend. I really, I tried it and I thought that you're right. Like it seemed like there was way more times that when you did go off, it was 2 gates instead of 3 gates. And when you did go off, you would roll maybe 4 or 6 out of 8 keywords instead of all 8 keywords in order, because you were kind of at the point where you were being pressured enough now that you were like, okay, like I have to go off. I don't have a choice. I'm going to lose next turn. I can't do 8 keywords, but I can get 6 on them. And hopefully I'm going to get the Charge Warden lethal. Hopefully I don't miss some of that. I really, really need to rule charge. I hope I don't miss charge by one of these 2 keywords. And it did feel a little bit more high rolly in that way. At the same time, the deck felt a lot more fair. Like it felt a lot more beatable, which is something that I want to see from a combo deck. Like I want to see a combo deck struggle to pull it off. I think there's going to be some refinement that you're going to see because I've seen some of the decks, the Guildsworn ones sort of going around that are still running more than just Fear Totem for returning cards to your hand. And I think you're going to see more of them do like draw and removal and maybe slow down a little bit more even and try to maybe only use Fear Totem or maybe the 0 cost return a creature to your hand. We'll kind of see. I don't know how it's going to pan out. I don't think it's going to be tier 1. I don't think I will mind playing against it, but there's rarely going to be a time that it's going to feel good to have it go off against you. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess
losing's
kind of
not
like,
fun though. So like, whenever somebody's like, this losing to this deck is always terrible. My go-to response, my gut response is losing feels terrible. It doesn't matter how it goes usually.
Losing to a turn 6 Iron Astronaut with charge though feels a lot worse than
Yeah.
losing than other ways.
Like,
though.
yeah. Well, if we're looking at like Empire Abomination is like there's definitely exceptions like Empire Bomb and like the pre-nerf combo invade. Yeah, I mean I get that for sure. I will say though, like I don't know. I feel like one of the things that's tough about card games in general is, and I know I struggle with it. I mean, I'm definitely not overwhelmingly objective about things like Hallowed Death Priest. So this is a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black. But it's so hard to delineate emotional responses, from the context of what actually happened. It makes discussing card games so difficult, especially with other people when you don't have a personal relationship with them, and that's why there's so much vitriol in the gamer environment. A lot of times is because people have a hard time and by nature struggle to split their emotional reactions, with a critical analysis, and some players do that way better than others. But yeah, so I don't know. I just had that thought when you were talking about it feels bad to lose to it, and
oh no, that's fair. I mean, yeah, to be fair, I don't like losing to that, but I don't feel a whole lot better losing to Aggro Crusader or Inscription Telvanni either, I guess, right? And they're not combo decks.
No.
It definitely, I think, I don't know. I've got to play a little bit more to see how it feels to lose against the new invade combo. I know how it felt to lose to the old invade combo, and that's probably a much different feeling because I feel like you didn't really do anything to earn that. And in the new invade combo, it'll probably feel like, okay, like you did like the old path mage deck. I was like, hey man, you can do that much math in your head while clicking that fast. That's really impressive. Like,
Can I just remind the listeners that Mark said he's gonna have to do some testing to see how it feels to lose against a new combo invade.
I gotta get out there and lose, man. I gotta get out there and feel.
Gotta get out there, and get some losses in, so I can really analyze this deck.
I think
That's kind of true.
I think people just generally feel worse about losing to a combo deck. It doesn't matter if they lose on turn 6 or turn 20.
Yeah.
People just don't like being OTK'd because it's not a good feeling. It's like, oh, like generally people feel like they couldn't have stopped it. And usually in like something that's later in the game, yeah, you could have stopped it. You could have been the aggressor or stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously in the old invade combo, no, you really, most cases you could not stop it. So that's why it felt so bad. But now I feel like you have more of a chance now as aggro.
Yeah, for sure.
Also,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say too, I personally and I made 2 pitches like on my YouTube channel of what I think should happen. I more or less wanted to kill the combo. I pretty much said that whenever it returns a hand, it needs to go back to level 1. But I also said that I felt like it should either make it where it says gates are not stackable, and that would just be force it to be a tempo deck, or that your first Daedra is 1 less cost instead of all Daedra are 1 less cost. So you could get a 2 discount Daedra, and then the rest of them would be the same after that. And I felt like that is more fair because being able to spam all the Daedra for all these stats, I felt like was the more unfair part too. Even without the keywords, just being able to fill up your board like that on turn 6 is a bit ridiculous. Like it's just not a board that can be dealt with. So those are like my 2 big things on it, which, like I said, more or less kills the combo, but I felt okay with that because I felt like it was meant to be more of a tempo thing anyway. So I feel like that was my thought on it.
Yeah, I never thought about that for the discounting. My thought was you can never have more than 1 gate on the board at a time. When you play one, if you have one on the board, you have to choose one to get rid of. You have to choose one to sacrifice. It's like that felt very much so in the spirit of what they were trying to do. And it kind of felt like it upheld the spirit of what the mechanic was about because it forced you into tempo. That just made a lot of sense to me. But, they did what they did. We'll see how it rolls out.
The reason I didn't like the can't play more than 1 gate is because I felt like that complicated it too much for a player that hadn't played Legends before. If you can read does not stack with other gates, you would understand that. But having a random gate, like let's say someone flipped it back over a belly G and you have this gate in your hand and you're like, why can't I play this? Like this doesn't make sense. So I felt like saying gates aren't stackable is just like really clear and concise and anyone can figure out what that means, versus if you have this gate in your hand and it's not hovered in blue and you don't know why it's not in blue and why can't I play this. So I think that was my reasoning for it, is it's just easier for people to understand what's going on then, and you're not forced to have a dead card in your hand, which is really frustrating to me personally.
Yeah, that's fair too. Well, there's a lot of ways that they could have gone about it. They went about it the way they did. We'll have to see. Just out of curiosity, I mean, it's sad that amongst all of this, we also got a bunch of cards that were buffed, which isn't something that, quite honest, like there's not a lot of card games that do that. Was there any of the buffs that stuck out to you guys that you really liked, that you've experimented with? I personally really haven't. I mean, I should have, like I would have liked to, but I've been experimenting with whether or not you can still make invade combo work. So I haven't really messed around with a lot of the cards that they actually put the buff on. Have either of you guys tried out any of the buffed cards?
I've been playing some hunter killers.
Same actually, yeah.
I mean, it feels like cards that have been like a good arena card, if they get buffed a little bit, that they're already kind of like fringe constructed playable. I don't know how I feel about hunter killers, but I mean, hand buff router is just so popular right now, so it made sense just to toss it in there.
I slapped it in my Doomcrag Warrior hand buffing variant, which and that was performing excellently. I only had the 1 copy. It wasn't even my idea. It was Neon Greensleeve's idea, so well done, sir. But It was great. It was really great. I mean, there was a couple times where I would buff it up and get, with the Moon Touched Guardian, or there was times when I would get already have Doomcrag down, and I'd get the double kill there. Oh, it felt so cool, and like that card is so cool. I love playing with cards that like you wouldn't touch otherwise. It's just that's a good feeling.
Now, this is am I right? This is the Redoran that went from a 2/4 to a 3/4, right?
No. The Hunter Killers is the
Killer.
7 mana 3/4. Now it's 6 mana 3/4. And when you summon it, it battles an enemy creature and then battles another enemy creature. So if you kill the first one and live, you can attack another one.
You can also cancel the battles too. So say if you kill one and it's alive and you don't want to kill something else, you can cancel that attack too. So it's pretty flexible.
Yeah, and when you put it next to Doomcrag and it gets lethal, that feels really good. Kill their little thing and then kill their biggest thing. Ah, so fun.
Interesting. I haven't had that card played against me yet. I don't play it, so.
I will say I think the Inspiring Kinsman buff is good. I don't personally know if it'll stick around or not. I think there was this big like gut reaction from several people saying, "Oh, it's so good now because it doesn't die to execute." And I'm like, if it dies to execute, they still get the +2/+2 hand buff. Like that doesn't. I don't know if I'd feel good executing it anyways. So like that was never really my opposition to it. My opposition to it was how understated it was, and it's still understated. And Rally's such a slow mechanic. I don't know. I think it's way better. 3 attack trades into more things. It's better, clearly. But the one I expect to make, I'm gonna just like I'll probably be wrong. I was right about the 1 mana 1/1 invade guy, because I was like, this card's really really good. Everyone's like, it's just a 1 mana 1/1. I'm like, it's a 1 mana 1/5. but no, I think the Renowned Instructor is like the most promising in my opinion.
That one the new. It's a 3 mana now 3/4 with inspiration, summon a 1/1.
Well, it's expertise.
Expertise, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
I know the cards. I know the cards. I know the names of the cards. For sure.
But yeah, I mean, going from 3/3 to 3/4 is really really relevant. I mean, it's 3 drops are 3 drops trade more than any other drop in the game, and they're also one of the point where like 2 drops are the most important because of the ring, but 3 drops kind of cement your curve. And so having a 3 mana 3/4 is a big difference from a 3 mana 3/3 because 2 drops, half of them have 3 attack. It doesn't now trade to most of the 2 drops, and of course Slinking Jackal and Mournhold Trader exist, but whatever, I'm ignoring that. But I think really the bigger thing is tokens never go out of style. Like tokens never go out of style. So just because we may not see it in a lot of token decks because of the vast, ridiculous, huge amount of options the tokens have, which is uncanny. I mean, we're getting to the point now where like the card saturation is so big. I mean, we talk about rotation, and for me, it's just like, I mean, I build any deck. I built for example, I built the Goblin Aggro Monk deck that I went like 12-0 with and grinded up 3 ranks into Legend. And I sat there and I was like, I am playing Aggressive Monk, and I'm not playing Golden Initiate, I'm not playing Penitus Oculatus Agent, and I'm not playing Eastmarch Crusader. What the hell is going on, right? But there's so many damn cards now. There's so many. But I think, like, down the road, Renowned Instructor is that card that was like it's almost worth playing. And sometimes people will tech it in there. Sometimes in Guildsworn tokens or Guildsworn aggro-y, mid-rangey decks, whatever. But I think that increase of the defense is going to mean it's going to be slotted into a lot more things because it's got a bigger argument for existing on the board and getting its value across multiple turns because it doesn't die as fast. And if there's a rotation, I think that card is going to be a top-tier option in tokens. And watch me eat my words.
Does someone 1/1 recruit? Do you know if it's in the same lane, a different lane, or a random lane?
Pretty sure it's the same lane.
Same lane.
That helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think for this, like, if I were to put that card in anything right now, I'd put it into a Dragon Knight, the mage card, the 3/2 that buffs every time you do an action. Because I think the biggest downside of the card right now is the expertise. Like, if you want to put it in Satyr, you have Crusader's Assault, and you have Scimitar, and Divine Fervor, I guess. But after that, you don't really have too many activators, and if you're playing Divine Fervor, you probably already like you're either making some great trades or you're already pretty ahead. So I feel like that's the issue for it. So that's why I kind of say like, hey, this is actually kind of more of a mage card where I'm kind of playing a hybrid between the two.
Sure.
But mage and tokens has been out of style for a bit, but I think Ian's right in that case of, hey, if there's a rotation, token mage can come right back, or
Yeah.
if there's just a card that really supports it. You never really know. They could really print a spell sword card that really supports it too. Like, it's really hard to say with these type of cards when they are something like expertise, which requires just a different build overall. Like, to build an expertise deck, you can't just be like, all right, it's Satyr and here's my Crusader's Assault and good. Like,
Yeah.
and it's still a 1/1 recruit. It's not pulling something like super swinging. Even if it was like a 1/2 or a 2/1, like that makes a huge difference in these kind of cards. But when it's a 1/1, how much do you want to build your deck around getting an extra 1/1? So that's why I think you have to kind of push it a bit to really get it to work. But I mean, it's not a card I'd say like, no, this is never gonna be good.
Yeah.
It's something that I'd say it's up in the air because it kind of depends what devs print and if there's rotations.
Well, and I think there's also like some cards that in past token variants, like think like Scouting Patrol, right?
Yeah.
You know, I used to play 2 to 3 Scouting Patrols in a lot of builds, and then of course, as like frankly like when Tribunal, like hard removal Tribunal became the defining element for like 4 months, right? Everybody's like, well, I have to play Withered Hand Cultist, which means my actions have to be really freaking good if I'm going to run them, which means the Scouting Patrol got cut, and now there's better one drops, so it's kind of like, okay, I'd rather have, a Rebel, not Rebel Warden, the Moon something, the 1 mana 1/4 or 1/5 that on turn 1, that one. The lunar one, or I'd rather have
Bishop?
That's the one. Thank you. Yes, I'd rather have that, or I'd rather have some other one drop than marked mans are obviously
Mud crab,
in there.
marked
Mud
man.
crabs, yeah. Especially if we're looking at like our mud crabby, Salty's Assault, which is an entirely different animal. So like, although that is an action, that'll trigger it if you
I
if you
think
want it.
that
But
go ahead, finish.
No, I'm just saying, like, I think there's a world like when Withered Hand Cultist becomes not necessary or rotated out, which I've talked to Ian Bits about this, and he basically thinks that the world will end, or at least at the time, which was a couple months ago, the world will end if Withered Hand Cultist goes away. And I do kind of agree, yeah. So it's tough, right? Because Withered Hand Cultist presents that idea, like, okay, if you're playing Crusader, at least. And I think that's where it just runs right back to what Silver just said, which is I think that's a card that really capitalizes in Mage or Monk, maybe if Token Monk ever becomes a thing. But with Withered Hand Cultist there, those Scouting Patrols, which otherwise I feel like would be worth playing, especially how they enable Pit Lion, really simply. But I don't know.
J23 Flow, and I don't know if that's Flow or who it is, but yeah. J23 Flow in chat said it's 1/1 and it's neutral, and if it's willpower, it would be insane. I think that's a good point, that if it was willpower, it enabled some of the willpower activated cards, like the guy that lets you draw a card if you have 2 willpower creatures and things.
Imprison.
Imprison.
Although,
I do think that it would be significantly more powerful. The fact that it is a neutral does matter.
Although, being neutral does mean it can receive buffs from the Dwarven Dynamo, should you wish to pair it with Old Salty's Assault and neutral Dwemery things. Now, because like the 3-drop slot there is, if I'm remembering correctly, pretty weak when it comes to the neutral packages, right?
Dwarven Sphere. And
yeah,
that's about it.
Isn't there that guy? Isn't there a 3-cost 3/3 that summons
Mechanical Ally.
The Mechanical Ally, but you have to make sure, like, it's an interesting balancing act. But you're right. If it was willpower, it would be better. But I mean, like, heck, I don't really play. I play like 1 Imprison in my like heavy yellow token decks, and that's it. I just don't know if there's that much that really makes a difference. And just like I said, like, you can go the other way and say, all right, well, since it's neutral, I can take advantage of it. I actually had fun playing a Spellsword variant that used it and then used the Hulking Fabricant. That was fun. I think Hulking Fabricant, I don't know. I don't think it's good, but I think it's really. It can be overwhelming if they don't have the answer right away. 5-man 8/8s feel real good.
It's quite fun in arena.
Oh my god, yeah, right? And a lot of
Definitely
those
done that a few times.
and a lot of those neutrals are actually pretty solid in arena. Like a Dwarven Sphere in arena, you're like, yeah, I'll take that. A Reflective Automaton, hell yeah, I'll take that. You know? The neutrals don't feel as bad. Lurking Crocs, like there's some really good, that like neutrals that get edged out simply because in constructed, like I said, there's so many dang cards in the game. There's usually something better than a neutral. But you're right, like hulking Fabricant in that arena format feels real good. And I need to play some ranked arena. You know what? I need to do that.
I tell you what, we've obviously there's been a lot of news, and we didn't even discuss the monthly card, the Orc, yet. There's probably more news that we could talk about, but I do want to get to talking to Silver specifically, hearing from her a little bit. So why don't we go ahead and take this just opportunity. We're going to wrap up the news. Let's go ahead and move on to our guest Q&A segment. Okay, during our guest Q&A segment, it's our opportunity to ask our guests questions. And DBN tries to write some sort of trivia to stump you now, which is great. But especially with someone who's on for the first time on the show like yours, Silver, our first question is always just tell us about yourself. What got you into Tessel? What got you into streaming? Not necessarily what's your gaming pedigree, but just like, what got you involved here? Because this isn't the largest community. You are really heavily involved and invested in it. What got you to where you are now?
Well, I grew up playing video games and played a lot in high school and college. And more or less, I was finishing college up at the time, and I was actually working full-time and going to college full-time. So I was working in a lab and going to college. So I literally just kind of like wake up, work for 9 hours, and then go to class for between 3 to 6 hours. And I'm someone who was always just kind of a workaholic to an extent. I just always like doing things, and it's how I get my mind off of things. And I was also a bit bored. I was not really meeting up with too many people because I was at work and then working at school. Like I had friends there, but I didn't really have any just social time dedicated to social time. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start streaming. And I'd always wanted to be a streamer for like 2 or 3 years before that. I just didn't have the computer for it, and I didn't have internet that really worked for it. It was mostly an internet issue, really. And I had finally gotten internet I could use. So I started streaming pretty much every time, like after class. I would stay up later than I really should have for work, or right before class I would stream. And I did that very consistently. And then like Friday, Saturdays, I'd stream 8 to 10 hours a day. Like I just streamed a lot. And I mostly streamed like PUBG. And then I had played Hearthstone in the past, but it had fallen off for me for a bit. And I was like, you know what? I actually really like card games. I should start streaming card games. I'm actually pretty okay at them too. So I was like, all right, I'll play card games. But I didn't want to play Hearthstone because I'd missed like 2 or 3 months, and I was free to play, completely free to play in Hearthstone after playing 2.5 years. I missed literally 3 months, and I'm too far behind to really catch up on a collection without paying a bunch of money. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna just find another card game. So I scrolled through Twitch and I ended up finding Legends and saw it was free to play and downloaded it, and I just streamed right there. Like I downloaded the game right before my stream and just started streaming it. That was it. Like I streamed myself playing the tutorial even. Like I just did it all, and I really liked the game. And then I actually had to take a little bit of a break. I played from December 2017 to February 2018. Took a break because I had to finish up school. I was just too busy at the time. And then back in May, I started again, May of 2018, and I just kept going from there. So part of it was me being bored and wanting to talk to people, and I just didn't really have creative outlets. I was, very sciencey and stuff, but I wanted to just be able to make things and enjoy some time with people. So that's really what got me there, I would say.
Interesting. And Legends has just kind of been the card game that stuck, but you're doing some Mythgard stuff now too, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other card games that you are interested in, like wanting? I mean, you said you played PUBG some too. Is card games kind of like your that's kind of like your jam now? Do you play a lot of games that aren't card games outside of streaming?
I mean, I used to play like League of Legends and Overwatch beforehand, but I haven't touched those games for a while. And I like some of the simulation games, like Roller Coaster Tycoon-esque games. I played Planet Coaster quite a bit. I like building things, but for the most part, it's been card games. I'm interested in Legends of Runeterra.
Hmm.
Just because I mean Riot's going to do really well in a game. Right now I have a lot of criticisms for that game but I can't really be too harsh on it because obviously they're still building on their core set and a lot of my issues are like, well, this is way too powerful, but it does kind of seem a little bit more focused on quicker games, a little bit more like mobile quick games that you can play on, on a car ride or a train ride. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm someone who mostly when I play, I sit down my PC and I'm like ready to go. So I don't know if that game will really fit with what I'm looking for or not is an issue, but there's also, I mean, like I said, Riot's going to put out a good product. So I think I'll end up liking it, even though I have a lot of criticisms for it right now. But for the most part, I play card games. I like the idea of doing a bit more single player content games, such as just like, the new hits. Like, I'm really excited for Ori and the Will of the Wisp that comes out in February 2019. Like, I can see myself playing that some. So like I want to sprinkle a bit of variety here and there, but really my main focus is going to be Legends and Mythgard, I would say. I haven't really decided like if I want to do things with Runeterra or not. I want to try to balance everything if I can, but it's probably not realistic. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Legends still has my heart, and Mythgard is pulling at its strings too. So I'm gonna mostly be focusing on those two, I would say.
Interesting. What was that first game, right? You said that you grew up as a gamer, right? That's something that
Yeah.
you grew up doing. What was that, if you look back, what was that first game that really triggered that for you? Right? Like, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, Super Mario 2 on the Game Boy Advance, I would say.
Okay.
My parents got me that. My dad specifically got a Game Boy for me when I was like 8 or something around that age, 7, 8. So we're pretty young, and they also got me a PS2 pretty early on. My dad is an engineer and also was a really big gamer. Like he's a giant nerd too. So growing up, and of course he was like, "Yeah, let's do this," and got a PS2 and played Jack and Daxter a lot, Ratchet and Clank, a lot of the just kind of just adventure type games, and I absolutely love those. I love the exploration of it, and I just have a really great memories playing with my dad. Like we would stay up, past midnight together playing. Like it was like that's been my whole life really is my dad got me really into it, and then I got I saved enough money to buy myself a Nintendo DS later, and then I got into PC gaming high school/college, kind of both. I went to college when I was 16 a bit early, and I got into PC gaming then because they gave us these like little loaner laptops. We had terrible internet, but we had a laptop, so I was able like a bunch of the guys were playing it in my dorm, and they would stay up like to 3, 4 a.m. playing this game. I was like, you know what? If they're staying up that late to play this game, it's got to be really good. Like that was my thought process. So I was like, it was free to play. All right, I'll download it. So me and one of my roommates downloaded it together and started playing, and we all just kind of played together. We had these giant like little LAN parties in our own dorm and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. So I just have a lot of good memories with gaming. I think I went off on a tangent there, but
No, 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 that's okay.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we all think back, we can think back to that game that really, right, that we got, like
yeah,
it clicked. It was one of the first games. I mean, I had games before this because I imagine I think I'm a little bit older than you. And so, like, the first games that were out were like my cousin's Macintosh, and it was like Shuffle Puck, right? But
yeah,
then, like, later, the first game that like really clicked was coming home with my younger brother playing Heroes of Might and Magic 3
Oh, so
on our
good.
computer every single day. And that was the first game that it wasn't just like I was playing and dying. It was that I was playing and it clicked for me.
Oh,
And
such a
that
good game.
launched me into sort of like base building RPG, turn-based strategy style games that really have been a love of mine ever since then. And I think our first game experiences do connect that. And I think that those are powerful first experiences for gamers. That first game that clicked and itched that spot in your brain, and it just like launched you into a life of really loving video games, and I think that's really cool.
I kid you
Yeah.
not. I kid you not, Mark. My little sister, and I still play Heroes of Might and Magic 3. We pass and play when I go and visit my family. She still lives with my parents, and she's going to college soon. But
My
yeah,
little
I'll sit
brother
there
and I
and
do too.
we'll sit there and just pass and play as we're sitting around in the living room. So it's such a good game. But
They need to
yeah,
bring
you're
that
totally
game out
right.
for
Like
my tab.
like those formative experiences, right? And I love hearing that. I don't know. I think it's so cool, especially like, honestly, and like Silver, that's a very similar story from my dad. It was the big he is a huge. I still play card games with him. Like he downloaded Mythgard the other day. I was like, that's sick. Yes, download it. But
Yeah.
it's really cool to hear that, because I mean I like when I used to do the interviews on for the TRS YouTube before we started doing this. That was one of the questions I always loved hearing. That was my favorite question. Is like, what got you started? It's like, that was awesome. You didn't go off on a tangent. That's what we wanted to hear.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we got a couple of questions in over Discord, Silver. One of them was, what can other TESOL players do to encourage a better gender balance in the game? And you had sort of commented on that really briefly before we got started.
Yeah, I personally think it's less about the obviously there's some issues with the way people treat women. We've all heard about it before, but I think really most of it really starts young, where I've talked about I'm a teacher, so I see the way students interact with each other. Like I remember growing up, I would bring a DS and Game Boy to school every day, and there were like two other girls who would do it. So we were all best friends because no other girls did that. And we were obviously a little bit more the odd ones, the nerds that we kept to ourselves, but we were happy. And really, I didn't get teased for it as much as you hear pretty much everyone say, I got bullied and teased. I guess I was fortunate and I didn't really have that issue. And if it did happen, I was just too oblivious to know. I'm that kind of person sometimes. But when I see the kids that I'm teaching right now, the girls and boys all know Minecraft. They all know what's going on with it. They all know what's going on in Fortnite. And the boys aren't, what's wrong with you? Talking. I've had one time where a boy told a girl she probably wasn't very good at Fortnite because she was a girl. And I said, you know what? I had to jump in, and I just told him she's probably better than you are. And he looked at me like, and he was like, seriously? And I was like, yeah, she probably is. And she just kind of sat there and smiled, and that was the end of that. But generally, I haven't seen that as much, where I feel like growing up, it was a lot different. So I feel like that's kind of just going to be a generational shift. I think the next generation below my generation, that's not going to be as much of an issue, as well as kind of talked about it off stream earlier, where if you're a company, why would you not tap into the other 50% of the market? Games were pretty much marketed toward young men. Usually it's a white male main character, and that's okay if you realize that there's other people that exist in the world. So I don't think there's a problem with having these different characters with different backgrounds and stuff. I think that's great. But before it was pretty much you had this one character, or you had this extremely hot unclothed chick, which was
Sure.
just a service, just a crowd pleaser. It was one of those two things essentially, where now it's hey, we can make these games for all these different types of people. Why wouldn't we? Unfortunately, I think it is more for a money standpoint and less of a moral standpoint. But at the same way, it ends up being good for all of us if that happens. So there's a lot that goes into that, and I don't want to go too deep into it. But I think a lot of it's just really a generation shift of people realizing, games are great. Why can't we all do this? Where I feel like before, because games weren't as immersive and flashy as they are now, you had a very specific subset of people. But now that pretty much anyone can pick up a game and enter a different world that they can connect with, it's for everyone now. I mean, it was before too, but now people are realizing it. Why would you not play games? They're great.
There's a big difference when the game was Donkey Kong in the arcade.
Yes.
And that attracted a specific type of individual who was actually really good at that type of thing. And the wide, ridiculous variety of worlds that you can embrace and become part of and find community in now. It's just different. It's very different.
Games have morphed a lot to the point where, like I said, Exactly what you just said too. That before it very much targeted a small amount of people. Like my dad showed me, his old not Game Boy, but whatever it was like Tetris. Not everyone's going to like Tetris, this black and white, boxes coming down. I personally love Tetris, but
Yeah.
I can see where most people wouldn't enjoy that. But however, now you can go put them, be like, hey, you can be in this own world, you can fly, you can fight things, you can build things. That's interesting to pretty much everyone now that you have this different world that you can go in. So I think VR will do that too in the future, where more and more people will be like, wow, VR is really, really cool. I personally haven't been able to experience it yet, but it casts a giant net because you can literally do anything now. Why would you not want to do that?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, here's another question. That was a great. That created some great feedback there. We have what happened to the butterfly hairband? Oh, here it is. Here it is. It shows up. She still has it. Okay.
It's a Silverfuse, so I used to always wear it like right here. And part of the reason I stopped because, all right, I'm one of those people, you know how if your nose, you can technically see your nose all the time, but your eyes adjust to it. I don't wear this enough where my eye adjusts to not seeing this. So I see this in the corner of my vision the entire time, and it feels kind of weird to just like put it back here. I don't know. There's something about it where I like it keeping this part of my hair back. Maybe I should just be like, all right, I'll just deal with it like this. But it does have a weight too. I'm just someone who's very, very sensitive to like touch and stuff like that. Like I'm like whenever my kids poke me in class, it's the one thing where I'm like, please just stop, don't poke me. But I just noticed it too much, and I thought about bringing it back and just trying to get used to it again. I've done this before too, which looks a little bit weird to me, but well, it actually doesn't work on these ones anymore. My old headphones, they're right here, they're broken. This would clip on pretty easily. So I would do that sometimes, but part of it was just kind of a hassle for myself. It was a big part of my brand, though, to start off with. So it was kind of weird taking it off for a bit, just because that was my brand for a bit. I never really decided. A lot of people said they want me to bring it back, but part of it is also, it sounds bad, but having expectations put on you is always asking for more expectations is rough because there's already a lot of expectations as a content creator. No matter what your size is, there's people that expect you to do and act certain ways and have, certain opinions, and it's just another thing that feels like an expectation. And if I don't have it, like let's say I do it every day, one day I don't, I feel like I'm letting people down, even over something as silly as this. It makes me feel like I'm letting people down. So it's just one less thing, one less obligation for me. So
Sure.
That's kind of it's a bit weird thing to say. Like I said, it's something silly and stupid, but it's just content creation is stressful at times, and it's like the less stress I can put on myself, the better.
There's probably an entire episode here with the three of us where I can ask you guys questions about brand building and not backing yourself into a corner that you don't want to be in the future. And there's probably a whole outside of Tessel conversation to be had around content creation, just around the butterfly bow.
It's like personal experience, obviously not to as great of a degree, but I wear my hat every time I do stuff unless I'm casting. And today I streamed without it with my hood up because I was cold. And because I can't like sit all the way back, right? Because like it hits the thing, right? And my back's been hurting me from like riding like 8 hours, 9 hours in a car on Sunday, and I was like, I want to be able to sit all the way back, but if I can't do it because the thing's here. So I had like 3 people like, what happened to the hat? Where's the hat, bro? I'm like, it's like this is 100% a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah. Oh, it happened to me a lot when I first started not wearing the bow. Like literally a year later, I still have people like daily asking me like, what happened? Like, where is it? I'm like, I haven't seen you in a year. What? But like I said, it's something I've battled with if I want to bring it back or not, because obviously it's not so much of a problem now, but you literally, like, I haven't worn this thing. I have not worn this in over a year and a half. And you had someone ask about that. Like, think about how much that is. Like, that's,
Yeah.
first off, that says success is branding. Like, that makes me feel really good because this was an original idea I had because when I played softball and volleyball, we'd always wear the hair bows in our back. And I actually just really liked them. I've never been, like, for lack of a better term, a girly girl, but I always thought the bows were super cute. And I don't know why I did, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to incorporate that into my stream. And that's what I started off doing. So, well, obviously, branding success, but at the same time, it sets a huge expectation. And sometimes there's just days where you're like, I really just don't feel like wearing a bow in my hair, or I really just don't feel like wearing my hat today, or like my head hurts, or I'm just not feeling good. And then you disappoint people in some way. Like, obviously, they're not like devastated because I'm not wearing a bow. They're not like, oh, I can't watch the stream anymore. She's not wearing her bow. But it's kind of like, you know, that's you now. Like, it's part of you because you made it part of your brand. It'd be like if I wore a blue shirt every day and all of a sudden I wore red, people would be like, what? That's not the way that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it's dangerous to be like the streamer who always streams inebriated.
Yeah.
Or like you have to be careful when you're starting out. And I've had that conversation with a couple of content creators. Like, just you have to be cautious when you start out of some of the things that you want to incorporate into who you are. Let's ask one more question, and then DBN, I know that you have a trivia question, a two-part trivia question. If you could change one thing about Tessel, what would it be?
Well, that's easy. Tournament scene. I like tournaments. DBN, same boat. We like casting.
Yep.
And personally, I just like competitive things in general. I grew up competitive sports, competitive softball, volleyball, all of that. I love watching people push themselves to be the best they can be. And a competitive scene is what does that. There isn't really an incentive to do that outside of a competitive scene for most people. Obviously, there's some people who are just like, I just want to be good and better at things. And I'm on that boat. But saying, hey, there's also this chance you could get a bunch of money, that just pushes people a little bit more. Yeah. And like I said, that's really core for me. And so I would want to see more of a competitive scene feat. Like, I would like to see Bethesda back something up weekly, and I'd like to see 2 Master Series per year. That is my personal hopes and dreams and wants. Will that happen? Who knows? That's not anything I have to decide, but that's what I would want to see. We're pushing people to be the best they can be more than one time a year.
Yeah. We said the same thing. Yeah. Last week we were talking about that. Like, imagine just like instead of being on a 12-month rotation, it's on a 6-month rotation. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
like a winter and a summer one.
Yeah.
Like, people would be preparing for a winter one right now. It'd be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we're not preparing for anything. But that's loaded. Okay, DBN, you had some trivia here for Silver.
Sure, I'm gonna fail it.
Okay, well, today's trivia question comes from our good community manager, CVH. CVH has given me a fun fact from the previous data dump that he received from the team, from the dev team. It's not super recent, but it was like post Jaws of Oblivion. So it's a 2-parter. First, what is the most popular card across all ranks, including Legend? So it is both the most popular card at all ranks, and it is the most popular card at Legend rank. I'll give you maybe like 3 guesses.
Wait, is it does rarity have anything to do with this?
No, it's just like most commonly played. So like how many decks feature this card is basically the way it works.
My first guess is going to be on Kano.
It is not on Kano.
And my second guess is Shadowfin Priest.
It is not Shadowfin Priest. Think very carefully because you have one.
That was a good guess, though.
Those were good guesses, especially the on Kano.
I'm thinking of things that are like given to players early on. Like, those are my 2 best guesses for sure. People cut like Can you give me a color hint now that I'm on my third guess?
Oh, on your third guess? I'm not going to
Yeah.
give you a color hint. I feel like that might give it away. But
What?
I will tell you. I'll give you the cost of it.
Okay.
Oh,
And that might be better actually. But I think if I said the color, it would be super easy. The cost. It is a 5-cost card.
5-cost
I've
card.
lost. That blew my guess out of the water. Which is always Wardcrafter, by the way. Always.
I mean, there's so many people that cut Wardcrafter and Harpy. That's why I didn't guess those two. It's because people don't understand how good they are sometimes.
Yeah.
5 costs, though, man. I mean, like, I think because you said color, it makes me not want to say a multicolor because, you know,
Yeah, it is not a multicolor. I'll save you that one.
not a multicolor.
Okay.
I mean, statistically, I've got to imagine it's probably
You get
not a multicolor
Divine
anyways.
Fervor for free, but what else could it be? Trying to think of cards that you get like when you play the intro,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's what I think would be played. You only get one of those though, so and I don't know if people would understand that
But
that card's
it would
as good
have
as
to
it is.
be one that also gets played in Legend, right? Like,
Yeah,
it can't
like,
just
it
be
has
one
to be
that you get. It
good.
has to be a good one.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking Shadowfin, because yeah, maybe Fervor. I guess I'll say Fervor.
Oh, it is a yellow card. It is a 5-drop. It is my second least favorite card in the game. It is Piercing Javelin.
Oh, Javelin.
Oh,
Yeah, that
that
makes a lot of
makes
sense. I should have had that one. I should
Yeah.
have had that one.
I think if I had I guess Divine Fervor was a really good guess though. I mean, that's a super
It is.
versatile card.
It is. That's a really good
Javelin
guess.
makes a ton
Very
of sense,
solid,
though.
but yeah.
Even more so with Cass being nerfed.
Yeah. So here's
let's
the
see
second
chat.
part.
So Divine Fervor 2, chat has me.
Oh yeah, Chad had your back there.
Yeah, they said Divine Fervor as well.
Well, it
I
is.
should have had Javelin.
Yeah, at least until recently. And of course, this is the last data dump. I don't know if there has been one since 4 days ago when I got this. But second part, and this one's going to be even harder. But I'll tell you, this is the second most popular card at all ranks, but it drops precipitously at legend rank. And I'll tell you.
Gotta be a dragon card.
I'll tell you
right?
this. I'll tell you this. It is a legendary. So I'll give you that.
A legendary that's the second most favorite card, but drops dramatically at legend.
It's the second most popular card across all ranks and drops precipitously at legend.
I'm assuming it's a core set card, I would think. So, at legend rank too.
It's not at legend rank.
Well, no, that drops off at legend.
Oh yeah,
rank.
yeah, it does.
So, man, I wanted to say some kind of dragon card, but I don't think that's right. I'm guessing it's a core set card though, because it's the second most played overall, right?
Yeah, it's the second most popular card at all ranks, but it's really, really low at legend.
There's a good guess in chat right now.
I'm not looking at chat. No cheating for me.
There is not a phone a friend option.
Gotta move it. Man, I'm looking at these and I'm not like, oh, this is it. This is it. That's not it. That's not it. Oh, Quinral Burglar.
Is that your guess?
Yeah.
It is not Quinral Burglar. I'll give you this one. It is lower cost than Quinral Burglar. I'll give you a hint each time.
Ooh.
Oh, it's lower cost.
It is a
Okay.
lower cost card than Quinral Burglar.
Because my thought was like people see that card at first, they're like OP.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh wait.
Yeah, they get one game where it hits to the face, and then they're like, this is the best card ever. I may have to mess with it.
Are you allowed to tell me if it's core set or not? I mean, it's the most played. It's gotta be up there. I got one maybe. 1 second here.
I love this
Daggerfall
trivia.
Mage?
Daggerfall Mage is not it. And I will confirm it is core set.
It is core set too. How? Oh wait. Let's see.
It's
Let
not
me.
the red white guy, is it?
Oh, oh. No, I don't think it could be that one.
Yeah, because how could that be played between rank 5 and legend ball? Right?
Oh man, I don't know. I might have to. Oh, ooh. Wait, it's less than 6.
It is less than 6.
Less
it is
than
a legendary, and it is core set.
And you said it's not played in legend.
Yeah, it is
Mundus
really
Stone?
low. Sorry?
Mundus Stone?
It is Mundus Stone!
Yeah, you got it. Mundus Stone.
Mundus Stone is
been my
indeed.
guess.
It is indeed, according to community manager CVH, the second most
I
played
got
card
one.
at all ranks and way lower. That is a direct quote. Way lower at legend rank.
Oh, that's
Congratulations.
Hey,
we don't
I
have
got
a
it.
prize.
You win. Oh, you win. One of the suggestions in chat was Tazcat, and I actually thought that was a pretty
Ooh,
decent
Tazcat,
suggestion. I thought that was a card that probably would see a ton of play at lower ranks. It's core set, but your clue is that it costs less than the burglar. So
Yeah.
wow.
Honestly, I'm gonna guess Taz just because Dagoth. People play in Dagoth.
There were some good guesses in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, they
Descendant
do.
of Alkosh, Varen, at least before
Yeah, I
the
was
other
gonna
hint.
say Descendant was actually I'm looking at chat now. Descendant was what I
Yeah.
almost went with, but I was like, nah, I gotta keep looking here. Mundus Stone. Once I saw Mundus Stone, because I went on Legends and checked
Yeah.
real quick, and I was like, Mundus Stone.
100% the thing
Has
that
to be
people
it.
play that, and then eventually, like, they realize, man, maybe I shouldn't play the lowest of tempo cards that can get killed by almost anything these days.
Interesting. Mundus Stone. That
Yeah.
is not a card that I would have guessed because it was not one on my early time playing that I
Hey.
ever really played. I didn't even.
Full confession, Mundus Stone was in the deck that I first hit Legend with, so.
Oh, nice.
And then you took it out right away,
Yeah,
right?
And then I took it
immediately
out later on, yeah.
Nice. Oh man, Silver, thank you so much. This has been what a pleasure it's been to have you on the show. Is there anything else that you want to add to our guest Q&A that we're having here that you want the people who listen to the show to know, about you, or we'll give a minute at the end for you to sort of rep where people can find your stuff. But anything else you want to add before we move on?
I mean, pretty much just keep playing, grinding. I mean, there's not too much more to say. I know a lot of people struggle not feeling good enough, especially in the game where you can go on huge loss streaks, hit unlucky streaks, as well as tilt streaks and not playing well. But you can get out of that rut pretty much no matter what. Sometimes you have to take a break. Sometimes you have to take a break for a week or two. Sometimes it's only an hour. But just keep trying, even though it's hard. Try different decks, talk to your friends, just do other things, and don't let a game take control of your life to the point where you're upset all day because you had a few bad games.
Yeah.
It's like reset and then get back to it.
That's
words.
great. That's great advice for Legends and for life, right there. Did not let it destroy your life. That's great. Well, as we close out the show each week, I usually come with some sort of thought, and I have a little thought on my brain. And so let's go and move on to Mark's closing thoughts. Okay, so each time I have a closing thought, it doesn't necessarily have to do with gaming. And this one has to do with life, but not with gaming, because if you're taking time to listen to the end of the show, we want you to get more out of this show than just becoming a better Tesla player. We want you to become a better human being as well. And so my thought is about the concept of pain in life and the concept of story. This comes actually from a book written by a guy named Donald Miller called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years, which I read several years ago. It's a really powerful book. In which he talks about the role of stories in life and the fact that as human beings, we love a good story and we want to live out really good stories. We want to live out legendary stories with who we are. The thing that we overlook often is that in every good story, there's a significant amount of conflict and a significant amount of pain. This is why the movies that we love are things like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and whatever other movie that you love that has a significant amount of pain, suffering, and overcoming incredible odds throughout life. No one watches a movie about a guy who decides to save up for a Subaru and 2 years later has enough money for a Subaru, because it's a boring story, because there's no conflict, there's no pain, there's no suffering. And so in life, often we want to live legendary and incredible stories, but we want to be able to live those things without pain and without conflict. But in order to live a great story, you have to learn how to embrace pain and how to embrace conflict and how to overcome those things. So my thought for this week is, if you're in a painful season in life, instead of maybe doing everything in your power to get over it, to move to the next peaceful or happy season, see it as an opportunity to tell a legendary part of your story, because incredible stories are never told outside of pain and conflict. Pain and conflict characterized every single incredible character. And so that's my closing thought. If you're in a difficult season in life, try to embrace that, draw from it, everything that you can draw from it. I'm not saying seek out painful things on purpose, but I am saying that when those seasons come, because guess what? They don't just come for you. They come for every single one of us, no matter who we are and what stage of life we're in. Learn to really embrace, to learn from, to grow through, and to tell another epic part of whatever your story is. And at the end of each Mark's Thoughts, of course, we have everyone who's on the show the opportunity to chime in and share if you have a thought based off Mark's thought as well. So Silver, DBN, you got anything to piggyback off of that? If not, we can move on.
Yeah, I really love that saying, because it is extremely true. No one watches a movie or a story just to see them achieve exactly what they wanted to achieve. I mean, there's a few cases like even when people do achieve something that they wanted to achieve, there's always, the grind that happens, or, some big barrier happens in the way. I mean, even when I make a YouTube video, I try to show some moment where it looks like I'm not going to get there, that I'm not going to make it, or I'll show my failure beforehand, be like, see, I tried doing this cool combo, but I failed 3 times before, but now you get to see the cool combo, because it builds something up rather than like, I succeeded and then I succeeded again and then I succeeded again. That's really boring, honestly. Mm-hmm. But also too, really, I think that it is an important thing in life too, because we all have our ups and downs. And personally for me, I have a really hard time with the winter season in general. Like, it's just mentally, like, just sun being covered, temperature going down. I'm someone who likes to go outside and just get some, exercise and stuff, and I can't do that anymore. And it puts me down in a spot for a bit, but pushing through that is, it's important to push through that, and that makes it a bit more interesting, and it makes me feel even more successful when I am able to push through that and do what I need to do, like record videos or, go to the gym or whatever it is. So I like that saying a lot, that, people, your story, as well as other people watching your story or the content even that you make, that they don't want to see, all right, well, you wanted to do this and then you did it and that was it. There's no pain, no suffering. Nothing bad happened, because it is a boring story, and good stories are a lot more fun.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
DBN, any closing thoughts on that as well, man?
Yeah, one of the things that immediately struck me was about what you're saying is this idea of pain, and not just the idea of okay, every good story has conflict, but it's also the idea that you have to work through it and move on from it. I think there's this tendency both in people, in politics, and anything, this idea of wanting to go back to something that was before, right? And that's very rarely possible after some sort of pain or conflict, and it begins warping your perception of the world and other people. The best example is the film Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, in my opinion, one of my favorite films. But it's this idea of a guy who falls in love with this woman, and it turns out the woman that he fell in love with was an actress pretending to play the wife of a dead, play the dead wife of a famous wealthy person, and fakes her suicide. And the guy is so racked with grief. Of course, it's pairing with his fear of heights. In the film, obviously, he suffers from crippling vertigo when it comes to heights. When he meets the actress herself, he notices how similar they look and begins effectively forcing her, and she feels guilty about it, to be the woman she was pretending to be, right? And the whole point of the film is this idea of like, you can't, you have to move forward. You can't obsess about what was. And of course, that, like, it's a great movie. I don't want to spoil how it all ends and everything, but it's there's something to be said for pain and what it does in terms of moving you forward. And obviously some people process things poorly, some people process things well, but in the end you need to move forward, and you can't just try to go back to the way things were before. It's never an optimal solution. So I just that's just what occurred to me, and it's not a super resolved. I didn't have time to like really plan out something here. That
was great.
But that's what immediately struck me, is like, you have to move forward and accept that change is inevitable after conflict.
Yeah, man, there's a future closing thought on the inevitability of change and embracing change as a human being as well. So we hope that my closing thought helps you not just to be a better gamer by everything that we talked about this show, but we also helps you to be a better human being, a more resilient individual, a tougher person, and someone who can live a more legendary story. Okay, in your everyday life. Yeah. Okay, so that's gonna. Oh, and you have a new movie to go watch. So write it down. Go write it down. Okay, so that's gonna about wrap up this episode. But before we get out of here, we do want to know how we can get connected with folks. So Silverfuse, how can people find what you're putting out there? How can they get connected with your content?
Well, I am Silverfuse on Twitch as well as YouTube, and then Twitter is Silverfuse Plays. I'm very active on all of those. I have an Instagram too that's also Silverfuse Plays, but I'm not super active on that. Maybe sometime in the future, but for now I post on YouTube about 4 to 5 times per week, and then Twitch is a little bit kind of various right now, but I would say 2 to 3 times a week. I'm trying to up that a bit, but I've just been really busy and working through some things. Okay.
Awesome. DBN, how about you, man? How can people get plugged in with what you're doing out there beyond Legends Cast?
Twitch.tv/DeadBrokeNerd. You can also see the Dead Broke Nerd on YouTube. I try to get at least 3 videos, usually 4. One is always going to be Elder Scrolls Legends. That's the most popular thing. So hey guys, I've got actually some cool videos coming up from today's stream. I've got some stream highlights from this new and improved self-damage veteran. God, I love it so much. But then of course Twitter, Dead Broke Nerd. And that's about it. But I guess I just want to, final thing is, don't feel bad about messaging me on Discord. Our Legends Cast Discord page, which Mark will probably plug in a second, is a great way to get in touch with all of us. I think Silverfuse is on it as well. If not, I can send her.
You can add me on any Discord, and if I don't reply, that means I didn't see it. Not that I'm ignoring you, so just DM me if I miss it, because I have a lot of Discords and a lot of notifications. Yeah. So I'm free to help people if they need it too.
Yeah, and usually most of the guests we've had on are available on Discord, but I know for myself, if you have anything Tesla related, I'm happy to look at it and either help you or direct you to someone who can. And if it's something else, I'm happy to. I will always get to it and try to get back to you when I can. Feel free to at me in the Deck Tech page if you want my opinion on things. One of the things Mark and I really is important to us is making ourselves available to the community. And so I just wanted to put my little word out there that if you want to ask my opinion on goblins, my opinion may not be correct, but I will certainly give it.
So get connected there. I will say, if you want to connect to the show, the best place is over Discord. I just threw a link up in our chat. So if you want to join our Discord channel, click on that link. It's really active. It's actually at this point, amazingly, I was really consistent with reading everything. It's so active now that I can no longer keep up with it. I just literally can't. You got to at me in it. I try to welcome every new person that's in it. There's so much content that's going through our Discord right now, including a whole new thing to create deck images off of deck codes, which is really cool. We also have a Patreon page. You go to patreon.com, look for Legends Cast, and you can support us financially over there. It's a way, if you find value in what we're doing and the content we're creating, for you to give value back. We do have a new patron. His name is Martin. Thank you so much, Martin, for supporting the show. We really appreciate you and appreciate your contribution to just saying that you're liking what we're doing. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to go through all of our patrons at some point and just give another thank you out to them, because we really appreciate you guys supporting the show and what you're doing. Last but not least, for me personally, I'm a pastor outside of this outside of this podcast. That's what I do, and that's really my heart. So my heart is to support this community through prayer and a listening ear. If you're going through a dark time in life or you're in a dark season, I want you to know that you're not alone, that there is someone there to listen to you, that there is someone there to love on you and to be there for you. So if you're in a difficult time, please reach out to me over Discord. Email me over at eslegendscast@gmail.com. Find some way to reach out to me. I'm pretty available. I'm there to listen to you. I've talked on the phone with listeners to our show. I message back and forth with a handful of them. I have a whole group of people who I'm praying for, no matter what their religious affiliation or what they believe, who are allowing me just to consistently be praying for them. And so I'm just there to support people. The internet can be a really, really dark place, and I want to shed a little bit of light into it. And so that's what I'm all about, and one of the main reasons I'm doing this show. And so that's how you can get in contact with me, how I'd love to support you. That's going to about wrap up this episode. We've had some really great conversation. And once again, Silverfuse, thank you so much for being willing to come on the show. We deeply appreciate you being here and have really loved having you on. Next week, we're having Endozoa back on the show. So Endo's coming back on the show next week, and we're going to take an in-depth dive into looking at deck building and what happens a little bit behind the scenes of a competitive team as they communicate back and forth with refining and building decks that are going to go out into the competitive space. Which is going to be exciting. So make sure you tune in for episode 21 with Endo. And we actually have like a slate of people who want to come on the show. I think Bones is going to come on the show here in the future, talking about his climb to legend on a new rerolled account. And we have a couple of other folks who we'd love to get on the show, which we're looking to in the future. So that's going to happen. Silver and DBN, is there anything that you guys want to add before we get out of here?
No, just personally voicing my thanks for Silverfuse. One of my absolute favorite people in the community. It was really, really fun talking with you, as always. But I've been very much looking forward to you coming on the show. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. I don't have too much more to say besides I love what you all are doing and hope you all continue to do it. And hopefully I can listen in to Endozoa. I've listened to a few other podcasts before, but obviously time has been tight, but I do love the content you are producing, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, guys. That's going to wrap up episode number 20 of Legends Cast. Come back for episode 21 with Endozoa back on the show as a returning guest. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and we'll catch you guys back here next week.